and our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Mom with the new flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
And I'm a sentient burlap sack, Mike.
And last but not least, it's Colton.
And we are back for another one. And we're not going to start right off the bat with what we've been watching, because Colton's going to talk about, like, cool news, I guess. Cool if you're us. Everyone else probably just doesn't care. But exciting news.
Yeah, when I was kind of browsing around social media this week, we found out that we placed 12th on, I don't know what website this is. It's FeedSpot's list of 35 best Canadian movie podcasts. So, yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool news to find out that out of the top 35, of which I do recognize quite a few, we came in 12th. So yeah, woo, celebration, yay. But specifically, a podcast on Elm Street, kind of one of our friends of the show. Hopefully we'll have something with them in the coming future. They're one spot higher than us at spot number 11, so we're coming for you guys. Next year we're going to be 11. You can drop down to 12 or 13. Somewhere other than 11.
We've got lofty goals. We're hoping to get to 11.
Yeah, just one spot, Realistically, I'd like to be the top 10, but I'm just being gracious,
That's right. Although with that kind of karma, I feel like we'll just drop to like 36, just outside the list.
I was going to say, if we were going to be any other number other than number 1, I would have liked to be kind of number 13, just for, the horror, number, Friday the 13th, all that. But, I mean, I'll take 12th as well, I guess.
That works for me. That was very exciting news, and so I guess thanks for everybody listening, and obviously someone's listening and put us at number 12.
Yeah, we have no clue exactly how we got on the list. We don't know what it's following or what it's tracking, but yeah, thanks for all the support, and thanks for listening. That got us to 12th at least, Hopefully, higher things next year.
So let's get into what we have been consuming. We know what this is. What have we been watching? What have we been listening to? What have we been reading? And we'll start with you, Colton.
Man, I feel like lately I haven't been watching much at all. I've just been gaming a whole bunch. So recently, Cuphead just released its DLC, the Delicious Last Course.
Oh my god, I saw you playing Cuphead all the time.
Dude, I was playing it like nonstop like the last week because I've actually never beat the game on PlayStation. I beat it with my brother in co-op back when it first came out. But yeah, I'm not breaking any new ground by saying this, but Cuphead, it's a pretty excellent game. The hand-drawn cartoon 1930s aesthetic is gorgeous. The sound design of the game where it sounds like, movies and TV shows of the time. And then, of course, the actual, balance of the gameplay. It's challenging but fair. Like, even when I wasn't playing on expert, I was still getting my ass kicked. So that's a lot of fun. Yeah, if somehow you've never played Cuphead, and a fan of those 2D shooter platformers like a Mega Man or a Contra, games like that, now's the perfect time to hop in because the DLC is excellent. Also, I don't know if Mike saw me playing this, but the last couple of evenings I was kind of grinding out the quarry, trying to get the last few trophies and endings for that. And what I got to say about it is essentially it's probably not worth your time doing that because it took me 9 partial playthroughs in order to get everything. So the game doesn't have an easy way to skip cutscenes or jump around from chapter to chapter to make decisions. So it's 90% of the time is just watching content you've already seen. Without being able to skip it to experience the 10% new content that is sometimes as much as somebody having a different line or something, right? So it's not always a very good payoff, but obviously, I think the game's worth playing through once or twice, you know, maybe trying to get all your counselors to survive or maybe killing them all off. But, I mean, after those playthroughs, it gets a little tedious. Besides gaming, I went to the theater a couple of times. I saw Elvis and the new Thor movie. Obviously, you guys know I'm not a big Baz Luhrmann fan, and his latest is gaudy. It has some of the most editing out of any movie I've ever seen. Probably an absolutely atrocious performance by Tom Hanks, but I can't lie.
Does he give any other
it.
kind of performance, really?
Dude, come on. Tom Hanks is like a national treasure. But this one, this one he's like bloated and he's like doing like a southern accent. He's in like a fat suit the entire time, and he has some
who
like.
Does he play?
He plays Elvis's manager in the movie, which I forget. It's like Colonel. It's not Colonel Sanders. They make that joke at one point in the movie, but Colonel somebody is what he goes by.
Okay.
Yeah, but with all that said, I actually liked it. And, you know, I'm not an Elvis fan. I don't know much about the man or his controversies, so don't cancel me. You know, I'm just going off the movie itself. And what the movie did was it was handled well. I liked the music. Most of all, I liked Austin Butler's performance, who he's playing Elvis, and I think he gives the best performance I've seen this year in like a serious dramatic role. So yeah, I liked it. Check it out if you're into that sort of thing. I mean, if you're a fan of Elvis, you probably already went to see it. So I was pretty surprised by that one. On the other hand, there's Thor: Love and Thunder, which comic book nerds. We know it to be like an amalgamation of Jason Aaron's Gore the God Butcher and the Mighty Thor story arcs, which they happen to be a couple of my favorite Thor stories. Have you read those, Rowan? I know you're a comic book guy.
Yeah, I've read, I think, most of the God Butcher. I haven't read... I'm not a Thor guy. He's like my least favorite Marvel character, so
fair enough.
Yeah, I'm pretty green.
Yeah, but those are two of like some of my favorite Thor stories, and then much like Gore, like they absolutely butchered them for this movie. Like neither story is fleshed out at all, and the movie is under 2 hours long, so it's not long enough to do either of them justice, And most egregiously, like Christian Bale is actually trying to give a good performance as Gore, but he's relegated to like 10 to 15 minutes, like max of the movie, like screen time wise, right? And despite his character's namesake, outside of like his introductory scene, he does no God butchering, on screen in the movie. So it's kind of like, what's this guy's name? What's this guy's deal? It's very confused. And then you have to throw in Taika Waititi's issues with tonal shifts, the terrible visual effects that have become kind of a staple of all the pandemic productions, and how the movie is constantly cracking jokes for basically every single line. Like, there's a saying in the industry that it's like, oh, if you're doing a good comedy, you write one good joke, like, per minute, essentially, per page. This is a movie that I bet it has, like, 7 or 8 jokes per page, and, like, 7 or 8 of them are bad. It was, like, I was at basically a sold-out, showing opening night, and, I mean, my audience chuckled maybe half a dozen times in, a little under 2 hours, so... I don't know, not a very good average there. So, yeah, I was pretty annoyed by the end of it, annoyed and disappointed. I liked it more than Moon Knight or the latest Doctor Strange, but it certainly wasn't as good as Ragnarok, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Ragnarok was just, like, to me, the, like, apex of that phase.
Yeah, it was, like, subverting what Thor did beforehand, right, and kind of poking fun at itself. Now it's like... okay, we're all aware of the joke. Now we're just going to ratchet everything up to 11.
It just tipped itself over.
It's too much. It's almost like self-parody at points. And then they're also trying to do dramatic shifts. Like, if you know the Mighty Thor storyline, like that involves like cancer treatment and chemo and all that stuff. Like, so you're dealing with that. You're trying to be very serious. And then you have, I don't know, screaming goats that they use this joke about these screaming goats literally a dozen times in the movie. I guess Taika thinks it's the funniest thing ever, but yeah, it's grating, I found. Like,
is it supposed to be like Tessa as goats, I wonder? Because Tessa's in the movie. Have you seen that? There's this like Twitter account called Tessa as goats.
Yeah, she loves goats. I saw on like her Hot Ones interview that she was basically saying that now when next time she goes to the UK, she's gonna go spend some time with goats. But yeah, she hangs out with the goats in the movie a lot. But I don't know, they're pretty annoying. So yeah. But anyways, I've taken up enough time. I've rambled. Mike, what have you been watching, or what have you been consuming?
I'm glad you took up time, because I'm just gonna sit here and go, I've been watching Sally, Jesse, Raphael, and Maury Povich. No, not new episodes, because I don't even know if either of those are on the air anymore. Episodes from the 90s that my friend sent me on some weird talk show streaming website called Nosy, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So honestly, that's mostly what I've been doing. But I mean, I've like been working a lot and stuff too, but
yeah.
Also, the Overwatch 2 beta came out for console, so I've been doing a lot of that as well, so that's really kind of been, like, eating up a lot of my time. Also, though, I am reading this really good book. It's by Fawn Parker, and I don't know why the name of it just... It's What We Both Knew or What We Knew. It sounds stupid for me to be... I'm, like, probably 3/4 through it right now, and I can't remember the title, but it's because I just, like, I literally, like, yank it out of my bag and just, like, open it up and read it because it's so good. But it's this, like, really kind of dark book about this woman who's living with her father who has, like, Alzheimer's and is, you know, pretty much on the brink of death, but he's this, like, famous writer, and he's supposed to be putting out a memoir, but she's, like, hiding the fact that he, you know, is very, like, mentally disintegrating, and, you know, it has the dementia and everything, and so she's, like, essentially writing it for him and going through all of his notes and his diaries and, you know, everything, and she ends up, it's like digging up, like, bit by bit, you kind of, like, get hints that it's like, oh, he probably, like, he was teaching at a university, and it looks like he, you know, maybe had, like, inappropriate relationships with students, and then all this other stuff comes out, and it's, like, snowballing into, like, all this, like, really dark shit, and there's, like, you know, like, suicide, and, like, illness, and secrets, and I just cannot put it down, and, like, I would not, like, okay, so I have an advanced copy of it, because I get advanced copies sometimes. It is out now, but I just didn't read it.
I was gonna say, just spoiling it for everybody who doesn't have the ARC.
The advanced copy actually came with a trigger warning on the back and listed about 8 different kind of triggering things that might happen in this book, and I'm like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, this is my kind of book, something that's gonna, and this is why I'm always, like, having a mental crisis, because I'm always reading shit like this that's, like, really dark. But I will say, for anybody who's not, like, particularly, like, bothered by things like that, they should check out this book. There was one that was really popular last year called My Dark Vanessa that was about a teacher who was having sex with one of his students, and then it flashes forward to the current time with, like, the Me Too and all these students coming out and, like, you know, saying he, you know, touched me or, like, tried to fuck me or whatever, and, you know, then it kind of cuts back and forth between, like, him and this adult girl that, you know, she was, like, in love with him and all that, and that was, like, a, you know, this huge selling book and, like, was really, like, critically acclaimed and stuff, but I didn't think it was that good. I think this is a better version of that, but it's not going to get as much, you know, fanfare, so I'm the fanfare. Read this book if you like really dark shit. It's almost like horror. It's some of the stuff in it I think is going to get pretty horrific, so. But yeah, other than that, I have been, like, just brainlessly grinding in Fortnite. Ro, what have you been at?
So, I've actually been gaming also, so...
Oh my god.
So, I shared it on my Instagram story that basically, so PlayStation had a sale on all these, like, old, you know, like, 90, like, Microsoft 94 video games. So, I was like, you know, I only ever played Doom once in my life.
Oh, yes.
So I went through the sale and I bought Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 64, Doom 3, and then, like, the 2016 one that was just Doom.
That one kicks ass. Yeah.
And then I also bought a Rowan favorite, Quake. The original.
Oh my god, yes.
So they were on sale for like $3 each. So I was like, all right. So I have played from start to finish the first Doom and the second Doom. I'm doing it in chronological order. So I think next up is Doom 64. will be my next outing.
Awesome.
I am very proud of you right now.
Yeah, it's been
Those are some good ass
It's been
games.
super fun. Anyone that knows me should be proud because I'm notorious for like going on like the easiest or second easiest setting because I hate games I can't finish. And like if I get too frustrated, I just don't want to play it. I'm just not that much of a gamer, but I've gone to like the second hardest or the middle. Like I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to just be an average, at least average gamer on these. So I've been really grinding them out, like having to play levels like 40 times to figure it out, which I never do. So, yeah, quite proud of myself on that one. And then, yeah, I've been watching a little bit of stuff since last time. Obviously, my big thing is I've been rewatching The OC. It's on Prime, so check that out if you have Prime. I've got all the seasons on DVD, but, you know...
Same.
Well, and
there's so many discs because it was like 30 episodes a season. It's like, my God, you have to change the disc like 7 or 8 times.
It's like 30 episodes a season. They're all an hour long.
Yeah.
And they never put it out on Blu-ray. So it's like the old aspect ratio. So I'm using like 1/3 of the TV where Prime actually has it full screen. They've updated it. So... It's been fun.
Did they update it or did they just crop in?
They probably just cropped it. Let's be realistic.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Amazon not exactly doing justice to like the artistic vision.
I'm hoping this will kind of get, you know, the hype because I see a lot of people on Twitter and stuff talking about the OC again. So I'm hoping maybe we'll get like a Blu-ray collection or something.
Okay, but Ro, I'm gonna just say one thing to you right now that you need to keep in mind. And I'm gonna throw out that this is both a hook for some younger nerds to get into the show, but also something that might happen that will devastate us. If they put that shit out on Blu-ray, you gotta think about, like, the rights to all the music.
Oh, I know.
Because it's all the soundtrack, right? Like, literally, there was a cultural phenomenon at the time, was, like, the OC mixtapes.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking, like, all these years later, like all those MTV shows, like, you know, Daria and everything, like, are they gonna be able to have the same music in it? Like, and are all those scenes gonna feel the same if they put in different music or like generic music?
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Any OC owning corporate entities that are listening, please get the rights to the fucking music before you put it out on Blu-ray.
So other than that, been watching some 30 for 30 documentaries on Disney Plus. I feel like out of the three of us, I'm the sports bro. So
oh, for sure, you can take that title.
What
gladly.
the fuck is 30 for 30?
So I've talked about before, like probably one of my favorite podcasts I listen to in my spare time is Bill Simmons. I mean, and he's like the second biggest podcast in the world, I think. So it's not like he's unknown.
I've never heard of him.
But
anyway.
He's basically like...
I don't think he's second biggest, but he is up there for sure.
He's big. But when he used to work for ESPN, he did a documentary series called 30 for 30. They were like... They just get different directors that direct movies or documentaries, and they'd pick a sports topic, so...
And have 30 Rock cast members recreate
Oh my
them?
God, that would be amazing. No, but it's just about random topics. So, like, I'm not going to talk about all of them. Like, example one was about, like, the bad boy Pistons of the 80s. And it's just, like,
course.
Yeah, they pick stuff like that. Obviously, I was only watching basketball ones, so, yeah. And then movie-wise, I watched Beavis and Butthead do this universe when it came out.
Oh, that's the new one, right?
Yeah, that's the new one. I feel like if you don't like Beavis and Butthead, you're not going to like this. It's just a continuation of everything Beavis and Butthead, but I enjoyed it. It's, you know, it's the same creator and everything. It's on par with all the rest of it. If you're a fan, you're a fan.
Every time they've done something new with that, like when they brought it back for whatever that was, one season or whatever, like 10 years ago, it was really good. Like, everything they've done with that has been excellent.
Yeah,
I think, personally.
I really enjoyed it. And then just Cliff Notes, I rewatched Vacation, and then I also watched Friday After Next. Don't ask me why, but That's one you can skip. Don't write that one down. But the big ones that my first time watching, I saw Jaws finally. Never have seen it before.
Oh shit. That was since the last podcast. I feel like you logged that like weeks ago now.
Yeah, I watched it. I really liked it. The hype is real, and I'm like,
the hype from 1976 was real.
The hype was real for these like 40, 50 years.
Wait, Colton, can you bring up his 4 stars and see what that stacks against? Like, I want to know what Bro is comparing Jaws to in his star reviews.
What is the quickest way to get the Rowan's Letterboxd? I don't know.
The last 4-star movie what I gave was Top Gun Maverick, so it's up there with Top Gun Maverick.
What is a 4.5-star movie from Rowan? That is what I'm wondering. Yeah. Jaws is only 4.
Yeah, I couldn't give it 5. I really liked it. But I felt there was other 5 stars movies that like I like better than this. Like I said, it's good. It looks awesome. Like it still looks good. I'm not gonna say anything about it that everyone else hasn't said. Like to me, the shark was like the least interesting part of it. The character work is amazing. Also, I know I messaged Mike all about it after me and Exilia watched it. I watched The Crush, Alicia Silverstone's first role.
We had quite the conversation about that. That was a 2-day saga.
Oh my goodness. And let me just say that
at least
that is getting lined up like next year to be reviewed, cuz I enjoyed it way more than anyone should. It's totally inappropriate for like it would never be made in 2022.
I don't know how it got made when it did, to be honest, but anyway.
If you're a fan of watching 14-year-old girls being punched in the face and then flying clear across the room, this is the movie for you. By grown
men.
There
were some very iconic scenes in it, and also the cast, phenomenal.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was
phenomenal. Yeah,
it's super great cast, and
and that's why it will never die, because there's despite the fact that it's so fucking problematic in every way, it's also got so much weird stuff going for it that it's you just can't kill it. It's like a fucking vampire. It's just gonna keep coming out of that goddamn casket every night. With a different name.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And then the last two I'll mention that were both disappointments. I watched Original Gangster, a Larry Cohen film. We love us some Larry Cohen, director of The Stuff.
Among other masterpieces.
Basically, he directed it and co-wrote it with Fred Williamson. If you're not familiar with him, he's like a blaxploitation star. I feel like most people would be familiar with him from Dusk Till Dawn. He's the giant black guy in that. But this is basically a blaxploitation. It's from the 90s. It's got Pam Grier, Fred Williamson, so many other people. Like the guy that plays Shaft. I can't think of his actual name. But it's like anybody that was anybody in the blaxploitation era. And this movie is terrible. It's really bad. It's it's just like a right-wing Republican, fever dream. It's like a gang taking over this low-income neighborhood, and then all these blaxploitation stars just buying a truckload of explosive and guns and walking down the street murdering, 20-year-old gang kids for no reason. And yeah, the last thing, I watched The Addams Family, the cartoon.
The animated one?
The animated one. Fucking terrible. I was not a fan. It just, there was some, most of these new kids movies, there's some, funny jokes. They're adult, and I like the voice casting, but it was just, there was something missing. It wasn't.
That's not the one Wednesday, right?
What?
No, that's not out yet.
No, that's not
this one's actually just called The Addams Family. And
came out in 2019.
okay.
It's Oscar Isaac plays does the voice of Gomez. Charlize Theron plays Morticia. It's a stellar cast, but yeah, it's just they really toned down
the bisexual energy.
They toned down the macabre and just the weird things that make the Addams Family. They really tried to make it more kid friendly, and it just doesn't work. They're just weird without being too weird. And yeah, it was bizarre. It's way too colorful too. It's pinks, and yeah, it's just kind of bizarre. Yeah. That's it. I've been going on. That's what I watched.
No. I'm not letting you get away yet. I got your letterboxed up here now. So, Jaws, as good as Howard the Duck, according to Rowan. Jaws, as good as Four Christmases, starring Vince Vaughn and Reese Witherspoon. Jaws, as good as It Chapter 2, which I think you have a bias towards because you're in that movie, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Starring Roe.
Did I give that 4?
A 4-star.
Oh,
Yes, you did.
I
that
hated
movie
that
sucks.
movie. Yeah, I hated that movie. I definitely had a bias.
And then just as insult to me, Jaws, as good as Repo the Genetic Opera. So
Okay, that I will co-sign.
Yeah.
oof.
Jaws could have
So, yeah.
used more Paris Hilton, so...
Yeah. Slide some Sarah Brightman in there and we're fine. Like, it's a 4-star. Easy. Oh my god. Wow, that's some list, though. That is some list.
That's just a couple of choice picks. Yeah, there's a lot of
yeah.
embarrassment
Sorry,
on that
guys.
list for
I'm
sure.
sorry to anyone listening.
You're not sorry. You're gonna do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, that is true. But let's get into the film. 1999 Audition. This was a Colton pick.
It was.
He decided to culture us. He said, let's get out of North America. We'll see if that worked or if me and Mike are just still pieces of trash. I mean, obviously we are, because, one of us is watching Maury and Sally Raphael Jones. No Rick. I'm a little disappointed no Ricky Lake, but that's...
Listen, the fact that there was no Jenny Jones or Ricky Lake was actually like a punch in my gut, but that's fine.
But let's get into the trailer, and then we'll be back for the bio and the review.
Audition was directed by Takashi Miike and written by Daisuke Tengen, and the story is as follows. 7 years after the death of his wife, at his son's behest, Shigeharu Aoyama decides to start dating again. With the help of his film producer friend, Aoyama sets up a sham audition for a role that meets his idealized version of a woman he wishes to marry. Following the audition, it's not long before Aoyama falls for the reserved but gorgeous Asami, and to his surprise, she seems equally as infatuated by him. But when Aoyama wishes to propose, he must come to terms with the fact that maybe his idealized woman wasn't so ideal after all.
So, our first experiences. Is this our first time watching the film? Mike, we'll start with you.
Technically, no. It was actually in the, everybody knows this. It's kind of, notorious. And, you've seen the stills or clips or whatever, and heard the stories of, a couple of scenes. And this was a movie that I rented in the, waning years of Blockbuster when it was still open but about to close.
The best
so
time.
it was one of those that
well, not the best time because it was
and,
closing, but
but it was also kind of the best time because they were selling a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that
so
was
you could
amazing.
get some cheap DVDs.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of
exactly.
times.
For collectors, it was sort of it was a very bittersweet moment. But yeah, it was one of those things where it was oh, we've never seen Audition and we couldn't find it to pirate, so we rented it at Blockbuster and watched it, and I feel like it was not the best context because I think we were expecting an 80-minute Cabin Fever sort of, or like Hostel or something like that, because they had been compared or whatever, and then it was actually like a more drawn out, longer, I don't want to call it thoughtful exactly, but you know what I mean. It was not like a wall-to-wall like torture porn thing, so I think we were all like drinking and like waiting just the whole movie for like just body parts to start flying. So honestly, I was really stoned that night, and I just really didn't barely remember any of it. So when I watched it for the podcast, it was sort of like my first viewing all over again. So that's it. I'm going to say a qualified, I saw it before, but I really didn't. It was that long ago. I don't remember. Blockbuster was still open. How could I remember it? What about you guys? Who has seen this before? Somebody has to have. Anyone?
I haven't seen this before, so I chose it. I find a lot of the movies I chose for probably my first year on the podcast, pretty much, I wound up accidentally just picking movies I really like. So a lot of the movies I chose were almost like instant slays for me because they were the ones that came to mind when I wanted to talk about something on the show.
Yeah.
So for like the next few choices, I wanted to pick stuff that either I haven't seen or I haven't seen in a long time, or like I'm not really sure, like I don't have a rating for it on Letterboxd, like where I stand. So yeah, this is one that has been on my radar for a long time. As Mike kind of said, I've always heard this movie brought up as torture porn. Like, I've heard it compared to Hostel. I've heard it compared to, like, Martyrs, which, like, both of those movies are incredibly graphic, which I went into this movie with very messed up preconceptions because I was expecting it to be just, like, a gore fest the entire time, and it's very much not. It's actually has such a kind of... It's well known for that even with the weekly or bi-weekly kind of like horror movie thing I do with a couple of my friends, this one has been on our radar for the past year, but one of them doesn't really like torture porn. So every single time I'd kind of basically say, like, oh, we should watch Audition. It's a hard sell for a 2-hour Japanese movie that also happens to be torture porn. So, you know, this was a first-time watch for me, and I'm pretty shocked to say that it's not really that torture porny. I don't think any gore really happens in the movie until about an hour and 40 minutes into it. So yeah, it was definitely not what I was expecting. And also, as I kind of look to Letterboxd, I've also haven't seen a whole lot of Takashi Miike. Like, I haven't seen Ichi the Killer. I haven't seen a lot of the things he's known for. I saw like a recent movie of his called First Love, and then his one short in that Three Extremes movie from like the late 90s or early 2000s, whenever that was. But yeah, so as kind of an introduction, I guess, to Takashi Miike, pretty much for me, this was my first time. I've seen a couple of other of his things, but yeah, this is by far the most popular, and I think also like most well-rated out of his movies. So yeah, what about you, Rowan? Have you seen it before?
Yeah, I saw this around when it came out. I had already told the story before we started recording that my older brother had given me a burnt disc with this and Visitor Q on it. I don't like to, it's kind of, I've said this before with other stuff, I don't like to count it as my first time because I really don't remember watch. I don't even know if I finished it. I guess fast forward to like, I'm trying to think, like maybe 10 years ago, like maybe a little less than that would be when I consider the first time I saw it. I was pretty familiar with Takashi Miike, because I have seen Visitor Q. Ichi the Killer is like a favorite movie of mine. I've seen Zebra Man also.
Okay.
Which is great if you haven't seen it. It's, you know, kind of his foray into like superhero movies, but done exactly like you'd expect a Miike film to do. And one of my favorites, which I saw with you know, friends of the podcast, Trevor and Willow, The Happiness of the Katakuris, which that might have to be a pick sometime. It's this great musical horror with like claymation that's like about like, you know, like monsters and like doing acid and shrooms and stuff. It's just bizarre. It's awesome. But yeah, so this is probably my second, maybe third time seeing it that I can remember. Kind of like you, Colton, though, seeing it the first time. I always forget what this movie is like watching it.
Yeah.
Obviously, when I had heard about the movie, same as you guys, there's this huge build-up. Quentin Tarantino, like, I remember seeing interviews with him where he said this is, like, one of his favorite movies. I know this was, like, a huge influence for Saw and Hostel and, you know, like, Eli Roth. Like,
Hereditary.
Hereditary. Like, but all
By the way, I have a bone to pick with Colton later.
Oh, okay. On air or off air?
No, on air.
Okay, perfect.
It's a fun bone.
But yeah, like you guys, like all of these directors and stuff have said, like, this is the influence on kind of this, like, specifically American torture porn genre. And we'll get into it more, but yeah, like, you're kind of in for a surprise when you watch this.
I have to say, though, it's just funny that you brought that up, because I'm like, this just goes to show that, like, American directors, what they take from, like, foreign films is, like, always the wrong part. You know what I mean? Like when they are influenced by, like, foreign media, it's like they misunderstand it and take, like, the wrong things from their viewings. That's all I'm saying. I just feel like American influence is, like, boiled down to misreading. But anyway, just throwing that out there.
Well, let's get into the meat and potatoes of it and get into our review part. And we know where we're starting. Our favorite scene, our favorite kill, whatever you may have it. Colton, first-time viewer.
I have a really strange choice, and it's gonna kind of sound a little bit perverted, but this movie also is pretty perverted, so
yeah.
My favorite scene is probably when Aoyama, he goes to Asami's apartment, like, after she's been missing, and this might be either in, like, the dream world, or it might be actually happening. We're not really quite sure, but he goes there, and essentially she starts seducing him, and she's gonna give him a blowjob. But as she's kind of performing the act, her face shifts to, like, different women that we've seen throughout the movie. So it shifts to kind of like the receptionist and kind of alludes to that maybe he had a one-night stand with her, or, you know, maybe they were involved at some point. It shifts to his son's girlfriend at one point, which is like, he probably had nothing to do with her, but he was still sexualizing her, like, when he met her. So it was an interesting point to me where not only did it kind of confirm that, like, fact and fiction is being blurred in this movie a bunch, it was also kind of a commentary on, like, the misogynist themes that I've been picking up on for, like, the previous probably, like, hour and 20 minutes of the movie. As I was watching the movie, the entire time I was like, okay, is this ever gonna, like, make commentary to how it is really misogynistic or really kind of fucked up how he auditioned, like, for his perfect woman, and, like, they were never in on that part of it. So this was kind of like the first point where I kind of got the movie, like, understanding, like, how uncomfortable I was with some of it, where, you know, Aoyama, he just views women in his life with a singular purpose to kind of give him sexual gratification, right? And it was a very literal way of showing all the different women we've seen throughout the movie, him envisioning them and giving him fellatio, right? So that was my favorite scene of the movie. It's not like a gory scene or anything, but I was kind of taken aback by it. And then from that point on, the movie starts getting very blurry with what's real and what's surreal and whatnot. So that was kind of my introduction to it. I was like, okay, we're going there. And then I had to pay a little bit more attention to see exactly where we were going from then on out.
Yeah, it's funny that, like, you pick that scene, because this is based on a novel, which I think I would have realized that the first time I watched it, but in my out of it state didn't really, like, retain that information. But it was actually funny, because after you told us you were picking this, I came upon not a copy that I could buy, but I did lay hands on the novel that this is based on, and I was like, holy shit, I totally forgot that this was based on a novel. And then I haven't read it. I have it on my list now. I really need to pick it up because I really want to give it a read. But I was thinking during some of those moments, and that would have been one of them, how it, like, brilliantly, like, when you're talking about, like, adaptation, like, there's probably so much that gets actually explained in his, like, internal monologue in the book that we just don't have access to. But, like, a moment like that really collapses, like, dozens of pages of, like, how he probably interacted with all these women. Like, he might have been like, you know, he walks in his office and thinks about, like, oh, that time, like, you know, I banged my secretary, or I wanted to, or whatever, you know what I mean? And it takes, like, all this internal, like, misogyny that, like, you probably actually have direct access to in, like, a literary page, and just, like, condenses it into this, like, kind of fleeting moment. So, like, I really, like, I think that's such a cool choice for you to
Yeah,
make.
it was also for me, it was just like a little bit of clarity as well, because I did pick up on those vibes between him and his receptionist or the woman at work, because how she kept like coming to him over and over again and basically being like, hey, I'm getting
and
married,
standing
do you care?
there,
yeah, and being
like just
awkward.
standing in the office door, like, hello, you know?
Yeah, and then also when his son brought over his date and he was wooing her with dinosaur facts, which, I mean, I gotta take some notes. I gotta use.
Oh my god, I totally thought about you when I was watching.
I did not know about that coming into the movie, that the son was obsessed with dinosaurs. That was a very pleasant surprise. But it's like his father gives him like big thumbs up as he's leaving the apartment, and of course that can just be a proud father, like, oh, you got a date, good, you know.
Yeah.
But it could also be like, oh, she's a hot one, you know, good job. And obviously by the end of the movie, it's a little bit of confirmation. It was more so of her physical appearance than him being just proud of his son, right? So I like that scene because it added more depth to the movie and kind of solidified where the movie kind of stood on some issues I was having up to that point. But yeah, what about you guys? What's your favorite scene, Mike?
Oh my god, it sounds so fucking stupid. You picked this like brilliant like moment where it like illuminates all this like unsaid stuff, and I'm like, I loved it when she threw his foot at the window. Honestly, no. Okay, but I have to say this. I was watching this background. I was watching this on a Discord server with one of my friends who was working and had it on his phone and was only like kind of half watching. And one of our other friends, about 25 minutes in, popped in and started watching it too, and he had never seen it before, but had all like heard about it and seen clips and stuff. So I was essentially watching it with this other person and kind of making commentary and stuff, and we both got such a kick out of, because like this scene, you know, and it's at the end, obviously, when the horrific like torture is happening and the mutilation of his body, and you know, when she not poisons him, whatever, like injects him with the drug.
Yeah, the paralysis stuff.
The paralysis, yeah. And it just does this moment where, you know, it cuts, after she cuts his foot off, the camera cuts outside, and like she just literally doesn't even look and just throws the foot at the window, and it just like thumps against the window and falls down. And it's just this so bizarre. Like we both cackled, but it's this like deadly, like serious, like really gross, like not played for laughs scene, but like just that one moment. I love that whole scene, like I gotta say, and it's a fucking cliche, and I didn't want to pick that scene as my favorite, but like it's one that like is iconic and people know about it for a reason, because it's like actually stunning. Like I could see why like all these directors did misread the movie and go, hey, the only thing we're gonna pick from this is that like torture scene at the end. But I just thought that was such a like hysterical moment for like the foot to just flick at the window. I know it's so stupid, but like, because Ro was always like, oh, favorite kill. That's kind of a kill. She killed his foot, okay? It's the only like kill we get on screen. She kills his foot and his chances at ever wearing a nice pair of shoes again, okay?
She kills that piano teacher too, the ballet teacher.
Oh,
yes.
That is true, yeah.
Damn. Okay, but listen, I do also have to say, it's not just that. So there's also
Mike's grasping at
like
straws. He needs to make it deeper, you know.
Listen. No. This is no. I'm not. I will not compete with you. I can't. But I will say, my other favorite, like, this was an aesthetic choice that I think was really brilliant, and it's when there's the scene when he keeps thinking that he's gonna call her at her apartment, and it actually keeps cutting between her and him, and she's sitting on the floor with the, you know, fucking giant sack with, as we find out a few minutes later, a person in it. And he keeps kind of like picking up the phone and not dialing it, and then she's sitting there and it like shows the phone, and it just keeps cutting back and forth. And it's just like, I was actually like white knuckling it, even though I've seen the movie before, because I'm like, this is really, really like Hitchcockianly well done. You know what I mean? Like, this is some goddamn excellent cutting. And then when he makes the call finally, and it just shows this fucking closes up at that goddamn smile on her face, and it just made every hair on my body stand on end. I'm like, bah! Like, I just, like, in terms of like actual, like, I will remember it favorite scene, it's gonna be that one. I just loved, like, my favorite kind of like haha, gory kill was the foot flying out the window. But like that to me, it like sent chills down my spine, and I will remember it more than any other scene except the foot coming off. Ro, hit me. Please.
Well, first, I think Colton really missed an opportunity there when he said that you know, had to pick a deeper scene. He didn't follow that by doing the sound effect, the like deep, 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 deep.
Yeah, my bad. Deeper.
Wow.
Which is actually my favorite scene in it. I love just I should preface this by saying it's my favorite scene, and also I have some complications with the scene also, but just that like slow torture of, you know, because she kind of does the explanation of like the kind of poison she used, that like, oh, you're paralyzed, but your skin's super sensitive and you're gonna like extra feel this. And just, you know, all those needles going in. And then when she does the slide up his chest, where like, you know, all of those are just like pushing in and bending, and you can like kind of hear them. I was like, oh, this
I'll say I had my Razer headset on because I was watching it on my laptop, and this sound design on that is actually sick. Like you could hear the clinking and stuff. Like it was.
It was just, I was like, oh, this is just brutal. That was my favorite scene in the whole movie. Now I will get in. I just want to say my complications with it was, for someone that was paralyzed, this guy moved way too much. This guy's like shaking his hand, shaking his legs, he's moving his neck around. When she gives this huge explanation that he can't move his body whatsoever, he's only going to be able to like feel and look.
Yeah, for me, I kind of interpreted a lot of those movements, like the jerking movements, it's almost like you don't actually have conscious control of them. It's just like your body's like kind of pain response.
Convulsing,
yeah, that's kind of how I interpreted them. But I certainly noticed it as well, Rowan, that he was definitely
and the
jerking
convulsing
around a
I
lot.
could kind of get, but it was also the stuff like, you know, when the sun comes in, he's like turning his head to look at the doorway.
Yeah,
I'm like, aren't you supposed to be paralyzed, man? Like, obviously she just sucks at poisoning people, apparently.
You just got to power through the paralysis, man. You just got to do it.
But she did make that comment earlier about like how the only other person you loved was your son or whatever, and you really love him. So maybe it's like his love is overpowering the paralysis. His love overpowers a drug.
There you go.
It's
beautiful.
I'm just grasping at straws here now. Like
Mike's got to make sure he's deeper than you this whole episode. So.
I'm gonna spend this whole episode like, okay, so when Laura Mulvey was talking about the gays, like, Robin Wood's film theory says.
I guess my main thing when I was watching this, I'm curious what you guys thought about, is from when I had seen it other times, I kind of know this has been viewed both ways, as like a misogynistic film, but then also a feminist film. Now, I know the author and Takashi Miike, and I'm not even going to attempt the screenwriter's name.
Yeah, I got it there. Daisuke Tengen, I think his name is. Yeah.
Like, I know they've all said that it's absolutely not a feminist film. Like, that they said they don't see any bit of feminism in it. They didn't try to put any in.
Oh, really? Okay.
And of course, I know like some of the critiques about it being misogynistic is just that like traditional like American feminism like has never been able to penetrate like Japanese culture, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, you've got to look at like what's your definition of feminism? Is it like white feminism or?
But I was just curious, like what you guys thought of it, because kind of like you were saying, Colton, like, you know, as it's going on, I'm sure we're going to talk about the length of this and, you know, how much of this film is like almost just this weird, like, misogynistic, not funny comedy, kind of. Like, it plays out like an hour of this runtime. It's just like this weird, like, romantic drama or, like, really bad misogynistic romantic comedy.
Yeah, a lot of it kind of just reminded me of, like, meet cutes and rom-coms or whatever, because usually there's, like, some elaborate ploy, and then you have to reveal, like, oh, this isn't my true self, this is actually me, right? It's even in, like, Disney movies and shit, right? Like, this happens all the time.
That's how they create the conflict, like, 2/3 in.
So when I was watching it, I was like, okay, I can see at this time men watching this and just being like, oh yeah, man, you got to do whatever you got to do to get the right one. You got to get the hottest woman. You got to get the one that fucks the most. You got to get the woman that has all these extra skills. Because he literally like lays out what he's looking at a woman like it's a shopping list going to the grocery store or something. And then he's even like, oh, am I asking too much? And his friend is like, oh, no, you're perfect. You know, you're right on the money when he's asking all these very specific things when this is just a sad, lonely widow, right? So it was the type of thing, as I was watching it, I was the entire time I was like, I don't know if the movie is like thinks this is cool and this is right, or if it's like kind of spotlighting like how silly men can be, right? Or how like Japan's culture is like obsessed with beauty, but also not just necessarily beauty, but also like young beauty, right? Like young women specifically. So like when the movie has the audition scene, which was stupid. I never realized we were going to actually get like a literal audition. I thought in this movie it was like audition in terms of like auditory. So like when they have the audition scene, I was like, this goes on for...
you really overthought it.
Goes on for like a really long time. Yeah, it goes on for like probably 10 plus minutes, I would say.
Oh,
just,
yeah.
It's just showing different women, and some of them are like, they're dancing, they're putting on a show. There's one that's like
cheerleaders.
Topless. Yeah. It's all over the place, right? And it's just kind of for showing off all these women and having the men just asking them like uncomfortable questions pretty much, right? About their sex life and all this stuff that I felt uncomfortable. I got a note there saying like, yeah, there's some creepy questions being asked at this audition, you know, like, I don't know. Hollywood is known to be really creepy. Maybe at auditions they do ask really uncomfortable questions like that, but it was something I was cognizant of the entire movie. I don't know if I'd go as far to say that the movie is inherently misogynistic by the end, but I also, it's basically like what you said. I don't know if I'd really interpret it as feminist either, right? You got an hour and a half before like a female character really has any agency and kind of levels the playing field, right? So I don't know. It's a complicated movie, and I'd have to like look into more what Takashi Miike has to say about it, like in terms of what his intentions were, because I only watched it this afternoon, so I never did too much reading up on it either.
And like you said, it's always so interesting to look, especially when you're looking at movies from like different cultures and just the different aspects. Like, because I know like Takashi Miike doesn't consider this a horror movie, because, you know, he talks about like in, I can't really remember what it was, but it was something about, like, basically he talks about, like, in Japan, like, he considers this more of, like, a supernatural story. And he's like, in Japan, supernatural stories aren't considered horror movies. Like, that's a totally different genre than horror movies. And, you know, I mean, like, you know, this kind of ties in with what Mike said. It's interesting to know that all these American directors are like, oh, yeah, this, like, badass Japanese horror film, when these guys are like, oh, we're not really making a horror film. And even though people's like feet are getting cut off and like it's just interesting.
But I mean, that's what's so like cool about like, you know, looking at something from another culture. It's like, how are people completely misreading this, and what are the sort of like contexts that we're not picking up on?
Yeah, as I was watching it kept kind of veering towards what I would almost call like a ghost story at certain points. Like, I definitely thought it was going to be like more of a sappy ghost story by the end of it, because I don't know, there were all these kind of red herrings talking about, like, for example, in the nightclub, she went missing afterwards, according to the guy there, and there was extra body parts, you know, 3 fingers and a tongue and an ear and stuff found in there, and I was like, okay, interesting. When is the payoff for this going to happen? And then eventually it does come with the guy in her apartment. But it was the type of thing where I was like, oh, I wonder if it was like if she was murdered in the act, or if, you know, something.
And she's a ghost,
And she's a ghost. I was really thinking that, and then I was kind of like, if she's a ghost, would I kind of be fine with the rest of this movie? And I was kind of thinking, like, it probably would help it for me if it was just like, oh, she was doing this for some reason. Because I kind of wonder, like, what is the ultimate goal of what she's going for? Because the movie kind of poses that, like, she chooses to do the poisoning and the paralysis and all that based off of, like, the knowledge that he had a wife or was with other women in his life or something like that, right? It almost winds up being, like, vengeful. And it was kind of like, okay, was that like a snap decision made there, or like was this the plan all along? Like, I don't know, because you mentioned the part where she smiles, right, about like, oh, he did call me back, like I got him, essentially, is like kind of the beat of the movie. but I don't know if it's like, oh, I'm smiling because I got him because I got someone that wants to date me, or if it's I got him because I'm going to chop off his feet.
No, I'm gonna
yeah. I wasn't sure.
And then you got to think of like this like kind of vengeful spirit trope, and it's like what's, you know what I mean? And that's why I'm like, it's like you said, it's complicated, and
it's very complicated here. And I just brought up the thing I was reading, and I did actually butcher it. So what he said about it being a horror movie, it was that because supernatural movies in Japan are horror movies, this doesn't have supernatural aspects.
Oh, okay.
So in Japan, he said this is about real life. So he said that's not considered horror in Japan. So it has to be supernatural to be a horror movie in Japanese culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, in the actual, like, definitions of, like, horror and thriller, because I remember looking up those when I was, like, starting screenwriting and whatnot. It's like, yeah, a thriller is the fear of the known, and horror is fear of the unknown, right? Where in this, like, what would be the fear coming from? It'd be just from a woman that's killing a few people, right? Like, it'd be like almost a serial killer story in a way, right? Which isn't paranormal in any regard, right? So yeah, it was a weird one that it was like, did I make a good choice by choosing this for our horror podcast? Because it is literally an hour and a half of like a romantic drama that's kind of misogynistic. And before it turns to anything else, I have a note here that it takes 37 minutes before the introduction of any even like a typical horror element, where I have Shibata, the record manager, has been missing for a year and a half. It's like when his friend mentions it. Before that, there's nothing sinister at all about this other than creepy old man dating someone half his age, which is, you know,
and you coming into it knowing like having this cultural knowledge that this is a horror movie. So you're literally like, if you just went in blind and started playing it, like you never would have expected that.
No, it would have been a big twist, and quite an extreme twist, right? Like, I would have never guessed that you'd be murdering people with piano wire and sawing off limbs by the end of the movie, right?
Okay, so I need to just jump in right now, and just because you brought it up, I will just interject my beef right now.
All right.
And it's that this is the second fucking movie that I've had to sit through watching someone get decapitated with piano wire because of you.
Oh shit, there is a piano wire decapitation, in Hereditary.
Yes!
As well.
I was literally watching it, and I said to my friend that I was watching it with, I'm like, you saw Hereditary, right? And he's like, oh yeah. And I was like, well, you know what's about to happen. And he's like, fuck. So we were both just sitting there watching this happen. I'm like, and I said to him, I was like, this is the second piano wire decapitation that I've had to sit through because of Colton.
Well, I didn't know that was in this movie, and it took me a second to even think about that, because the decapitation in Hereditary that's far more troubling is the telephone pole decapitation. But the multiple decapitations in Hereditary that I had to sit through.
I feel like too, the decapitation in this one, you're kind of rooting for, because that guy definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, like I'm not saying he didn't have it coming. I'm just saying that like I have had to watch multiple heads fall off from wire garrots.
Well, eventually I'm going to pick...
specifically because Colton suggested that we watch it.
Eventually I'm picking Ghost Ship, so I can really up my ante and get like 20 or 30 wire decapitations in the first 5-10 minutes of the movie.
I like it.
Honestly, I'm rooting for Ghost Ship. We need to make this happen.
Yes. For sure.
I will say, like, you know, I guess my complicated feelings with this one is, you know, about an hour and a half into it. Like I said, because I never remember what happens in this movie. I definitely was, like, typing a message to Colton that was like, I fucking hate you. Why couldn't this just be some stupid mic pick or something?
It felt like a mic pick as I was watching this, which is, you know, I don't know anything about this movie, right? It was a blind pick. I know people love it, right? So when I was watching this, I was like, Rowan's gonna fucking hate this. Like, this is kind of like a mic pick where it's slower, and then there are horror elements, and then we're kind of arguing, is this a horror movie?
Is it horror? Exactly. Yeah. That is so fucking funny. I'm losing it.
So this is my real thing, though, is then when we do get the, like, he gets drugged drinking the whiskey, does the fall down, where we then start like, what's real, what's not real.
Glimpses of everything, yeah.
You know, we're seeing parts of conversations that, yeah, we don't know if they actually happened, if he's remembering them, like what's going on, that kind of fill in the whole movie you just watched. I'm like, this guy's fucking brilliant. Like, I thought it was so well done that like kind of twist in the movie. And, you know, yet again, another twist. We just did High Tension. I'd say a twist done a little better.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, everything clicked for me, and I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm starting to remember now, like, what's really going on here. And I just think it's done really well.
Yeah, you could tell, like, obviously there's a choice there that he wants to blur the lines between fiction and, you know, fact and, you know, waking world and dreaming world. And for me, it's, like, literally right from the very beginning of the movie. My very first note, and I never knew any of this by the end of the movie, is the lighting in this is really bloomy and cheesy. It's almost dreamlike. And that was right from the very beginning. Like, in the hospital scenes, I thought it was so ugly and kind of like overlit, and it was like saccharine in this like orangish yellow glow the entire time that I was like, oh man, this is gonna drive me crazy. It looks so fake. And then I'm like, oh, that was what it was supposed to be doing the entire movie, right? It was supposed to be blurring the lines between what is real and what is not real. So it's like, it is very deliberate. It's the type of thing where I don't know if we needed an hour and a half of a romantic drama where we're setting up kind of how lonely this man is and kind of how gross he is. And we probably could have did it in 40 minutes and still had a pretty strong turn. But it is definitely deliberate for sure. Like I said, I noticed the detail right away. It was my very first note. It kind of reminded me of when I watched Mulholland Drive for the first time, where obviously that movie's very much about dreams as well, and like what's real and what's not. And that was probably one of my first notes for that movie too. It's just like this blown out look. And I mean, I think Mulholland Drive probably came out right around the similar time as this one, probably a few years after.
Oh, it totally did. Yeah.
So it's just like an aesthetic choice that when I looked at it, I kind of knew what he was going for, and I'm glad that was kind of confirmed, like, once again, by the end of the movie.
I kind of assumed it. Like, I know what you mean, because that look, I'm also like, oh, I hate this look. But to me, I got, you know, and Mike's going to say, yeah, once I say it, but I got House vibes. Where because House is another one, you know, another Japanese horror film that deals with blurring reality and what's happening, and it's the exact same aesthetic of that blown out, like, white orangish lighting. So I'm curious if maybe that's like a kind of like a unique Japanese thing. I don't know.
Yeah, except the decapitated heads don't, you know, come to life and bite people in the ass. Other than that, totally similar.
Yeah, the thing with House, though, like, I think that was basically like 20 years before this.
Well, yeah.
And that movie is very much like they're creating like this almost like perfect, almost like Disney Channel go away party that then descends into horror, right? Where this was just like they were trying to create like a dream-like quality for the entire thing. It was just I didn't pick up on how intentional the dreamlike qualities were until like the ending. Like, I did pick up on that one point earlier in the movie where kind of you cut to a wide and you see that they're sitting in the restaurant all by themselves as they're talking, and I'm like, but that could just be really focusing on your date and what they're saying. And then when it cuts to a different angle, it shows that it is like a full restaurant. And then there's a weird cut again where it cuts and they're at a fancy restaurant, still continuing the conversation. So what is that doing? I'm not 100% sure. But it was like, I noticed.
Is that the one where there were like red slashes on all the tables? Yeah.
So it cuts from like a very plain, almost like diner with white tabletops, and like I said, everyone disappears at one point, to then like, that really fancy upscale dining. Maybe it's supposed to denote that she said something that he really likes. Maybe they did move the conversation to a fancier spot because the date was going so well. I have no clue, but I did notice.
I was going to say, I kind of thought too with that, I just kind of thought it was making us assume they were like multiple dates happened, or
true,
like I thought just they, you know, carried the conversations over to kind of make it fit. But that was kind of one of my main issues with this, and it's more of a personal issue, I feel, than a film issue, because like you said, there's all these things going on, and I'm like, what are the meanings of this? I don't know. And then I'm just like, am I actually just stupid? Like, I was like, maybe I'm just not on Takashi Miike's level, like, because I think about everyone else, in my life and that I know has watched this movie. Like, people love this movie. This is like a very loved, critically loved movie, and I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I'm not, I'm like a Neanderthal when it comes to this. I only like my horror movie with giant slashers slamming people in sleeping bags against trees or something.
That's a
and don't
particularly
forget about
good
Trolls.
kill.
Yeah, and
Trolls, yes.
That should be the real conversation. Was there enough meat sandwiches in this to...
No double-decker bologna sandwiches, 0 to 5.
Oh my god.
I know. Somehow we've turned the podcast. It used to always go back to the OC. Now it just always goes back to Troll 2.
I love
it. Colton has infected every being, every part.
No, I was going to ask, what did you guys specifically take about, or what do you think of when it was revealed what was in the sack? Because that was a moment that it kind of did make me like kind of squirm a little bit, where she's puking in the dog bowl and then delivering her puke to the guy. Did you guys remember that from like your first viewings, or were you just kind of as off-put and like grossed out by it as I was?
All I remembered from my first viewing, I'm not gonna lie, was the bag jerking and then the foot getting sawed off and the needles.
Okay.
That's literally all I remembered. So I was watching it and I was like, I remember that there's a person in there, but that's all I remember. So then when it happened, I was like, okay, yep, this is not... I was definitely way too blitzed to retain any of this. And maybe I repressed it. Maybe it was not that I was blitzed, it was that I was repressing it, because it was a moment, let me tell you.
I'm the opposite. All I remember from this movie is that someone eats vomit. Now...
Okay.
I will say this, I feel like I don't know if every time that I've seen this, but the last time I watched this, I feel like maybe I saw the US R-rated cut, because I remember seeing the vomit scene and being like, oh, like that wasn't as bad, like you see the bowl, but you don't really see anything, where like, we all agreed beforehand, we watched the unrated where we're getting the full eating of the vomit. Mm-hmm. So I will say, this viewing out of any other viewing, whether I blocked it out or I didn't see it, it did disgust me, and I was, as a sicko, that made me happy. I was like, well, it's doing what it was supposed to do. Now, if you want to be even more disgusted, fun fact, it's real vomit.
No, not that.
From
not
the actress,
that.
or
yeah, from the actress. Takashi Miike said that she's a method actor. So that was actually her puke. She made sure that it was her puke.
Yikes, yeah, that even makes it even more gross, and it was already gross enough. And what was funny about it was when I saw it, I was like, it doesn't really look like movie vomit, because you know what movie vomit, they usually go with like oatmeal or some shit. This looked like it was like kind of pale and like stomach acidy and stuff, and now from what you're saying, I'm
hoping the other
I was gonna say it looked like
eggnog
to me.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it was eggnog that the actor was eating and he also wasn't method, so...
I hope it was alcoholic eggnog at that, because he deserved it, honestly.
A weird detail about that, when he is, like, eating the vomit, though, he is lapping it up, and his tongue is definitely coming out.
He has no tongue, yeah. That was the one thing I took issue with.
And when I was looking at it, I in my head, and this is a movie, like, Rowan was like, oh, am I smart enough for this or not? Like, I'm kind of thinking the same thing. Like, it is a movie that, to a degree, I think it warrants a second watch, at least to last, like, 40 minutes, because in my head, I'm kind of picturing when the guy is lapping up the vomit, he looks a little bit different. So I almost wonder, is it, like, the main character seeing, like, himself down lapping up the vomit, or is it still the same guy? Like, I wonder if I went back and looked at that scene, would he still have all of his fingers and whatnot as well and be missing an ear and that sort of thing, right? Or is it... once again, blurring the lines between.
But also, she definitely killed multiple people, so was the tongue from somebody else that we don't even realize, right? Like, is that what we're supposed to be surmising here, that the tongue might be from another person?
Yeah, so I think what we're supposed to get from is that the tongue is from Well, they do a close-up on this guy because he opens his mouth kind of like he squeals, and you see the stitching that weird, the tongue is gone.
Yeah. He's just
so
not verbalizing, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to believe that that's her agent, like the record agent that's been missing for a year and a half, and then the guy at the bar that was killed, we're supposed to know that that was just like the manager or whatever of the bar that was closing the bar down by himself. Why she brought fingers?
Wait, was
and all
that
I don't know.
Woman? I thought that was a woman.
Who?
I thought the bar person was a woman.
Yeah,
I thought they found the extra...
do say the bar owner was a woman.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, well that still
which
doesn't really
kind of made
anything.
me like
killed somebody else. I guess. Yeah, I must have missed the line where they said it was a woman, but I mean,
I was just like a brief little like throwaway. Yeah.
Yeah. Why would she kill that woman and then bring the fingers and tongue and ear of the guy in her apartment to that crime scene? I have no idea, but it was an interesting detail, I guess. I don't know.
But honestly, and this is why I want to read the book, because I'm not thinking that like the book is gonna like answer all my questions, but I feel like there's probably some like interesting threads that they obviously, as any time you make an adaptation of a novel, you have to like cut out and adapt and change. And I'm really interested to like see what kind of weird little threads there are that like they glossed over or cut out altogether. So I don't know. This might be one to read the book of and revisit later on and go, by the way, yeah, just, you know.
Well, I was gonna say too, I do know the ending is different. I'd read that there was some back and forth on the ending. Apparently in the book, both of his feet get cut off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He's like a little more brutalized in the book. And then the screenwriter in the original screenplay actually had it that none of his feet get cut off.
Oh, so they compromised at one foot.
So basically what ended up happening is...
I'll meet you in the middle.
In that interview with Takashi Miike, he said like one of the producers or something, his quote was, you have to be a man and see the torture through. So he basically compromised, he was like, 1 foot will go, 1 foot won't. I'll please both parties.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the ending was something that I'm not really sure how I feel about. By the time we got to that point, I was kind of dozing a little bit in and out of it, which is funny.
Me too.
Because that's like, like I said, that's the vibe of the movie. But I was watching it and I was like, it just kind of ends abruptly. Now, when I went and looked at Wikipedia afterwards real quickly, just to freshen up the plot points, they were saying they were repeating the same lines from their first date as they were like lying down on the floor looking at each other. Okay, I didn't get that when I was watching it. I do think that's slightly better,
it's like,
I guess.
I'm not a... What was it? She talks about herself like, I'm not a clingy woman, or you think I'm a clingy woman, but I'm not, or something like that. Yeah. But I vividly picked up that was... Okay. I again, and it's because I was up at 3:50 this morning, and then I decided to rewatch this when I got home from work. Mm-hmm. I was sort of like slipping in and out, but I was like, oh my god, I know that's the dialogue from the beginning.
Yeah, it was a little nebulous for me who didn't pick up on it. I was just kind of like, okay, cool, like, and then the credits roll with like, this
because
cool rock
if
music,
you don't realize that that's that they're duplicating then it doesn't make sense. Yeah,
no, I was just like, all right,
they're kind of circling back and like trying to like tie it in a
derive more
circle,
meaning from
right?
it. Yeah,
but like other than that, it's just like she's like lying there on the floor. I'm not clingy, and it's like she literally just cut your foot off. Like,
well, and I'd be interested. Like, did you guys think anything of that? Because I know, like, when I saw that, I couldn't figure out, like, am I, is there some deep thing to her repeating this? I kind of took it on, I feel like a face value where she was literally repeating the same thing and he's listening, and I was like, oh shit, like, he's realizing that she just has this all memorized. Like, this is something she probably tells every single one of these guys, because it's just word for word. Her pauses are at the exact same spots and everything, where, he thought this was really like this connection and, this moment they had when they were on these dates. And then even though, his foot's cut off, she's done all this pain, he's learning like, oh, like, really, I I mean nothing to this woman, even after all the torture, right? Like, it's like, this is just a procedure in, like, a serial killer's mind. Like, this is the Dexter routine.
I like that interpretation. That's not what I took away from it, but I mean, I don't mind
No,
that.
me either. I was like, we have so completely opposite interpretations of this. It's disgusting. I want to hear Colton's.
No, I mean, my interpretation of it was just literally like, once again, I never even picked up it was from On the First Date, right? So I just thought it was like a nebulous way to end the movie on, because she's talking about love and about how she'll only be his, and as long as you don't love anyone else, we'll be fine. I was kind of like, oh, okay. Once again, it's like, oh, the jealous woman was like the vibe I got, right? Or like, oh, now that I'm gone, you'll still always love me because, you know, I took a piece of you type of thing, right? Like literally, right? But yeah, no, I definitely didn't get that interpretation. I do like it though. I don't know, what did you get from it, Mike?
No, because I thought that it was a really interesting tactic to use, because she's lying there on the floor after, like, you know, cutting his foot off and essentially torturing him with the needles and attacking his son. But then, you know, it cuts back to this dialogue from when she was this, like, oh, you know, cutesy wearing white, very, like, literally head to toe wearing white, like, very pointedly wearing, like virginal, like, innocent white on their date, and she seemed very meek. And I thought that was a really interesting way of, like, flattening that perception with, like, what had just happened, and how, you know, it's like, this is the same person. And it really made me, like, think about who's the villain here, because, like, she was, like, playing up a role for him at the beginning, and like his expectations, and you know that he was really scummy and that's what he wanted. So I'm, like, looking at it and going, like, at the end, you know, they kind of, like, in that, you know, climactic final act, it's like, obviously she's, like, the villain, but also when she's lying there dying, it, like, ties it back to that, and it's like, dude, you really fucking mistreated her. And, like, it sort of, like, ties it in, like, to me, it tied those two notions of that he had of her together, and I just thought it was, like, kind of a really brilliant way of, like, underscoring the complexity, and how it's like, maybe she's not the only villain, you know what I mean? Like, it sort of highlighted that his, and, you know, like, kind of like the patriarchal element of that society is also at play here. Anyway, I don't know, maybe I overthought it, but I just thought that, like, layering the like dialogue from, like, that cutesy little meet cute cafe moment with them both lying there, like, dying on the ground was just a brilliant commentary. But I don't know. Yeah, now I could have totally been overthinking that.
Now I think I like a hybrid of both of your guys', is because you essentially mentioned about how, like, she was auditioning, and that Rowan basically was like, these are lines that she feeds to everybody. And, like, once again, if she's an actress, you go and remember your lines, you perform your role, and you try and get the part, right? So the whole point of the movie about the audition aspect, I was really hoping that she was going to be playing the part the entire movie to whatever degree that she needed to do to get the role, or just, like, basically, I have always been acting. This is the real me when I'm sawing off your leg, essentially, right? So if that is the aspect to it, if that is, like, the ultimate thing where it was just like, yeah, I was always playing this role and this is the real me, and I'm almost, like, pointedly feeding these lines back, then yeah, that works for me. I wanted that for sure from the movie. What about that sex scene between them, where she just kind of, like, lays down and strips? Did that make either you guys kind of feel uncomfortable when you were watching it? It was
I was not comfortable scene. At all. Not at all. Not even a little bit. Like,
and I think it's supposed to be, like, off-putting as well, because all of, like, the bed frames are, like, twisted, and they're all, like, bent, and like, I felt really uneasy the entire time. Not to mention the dude's, like, twice her age, but it was.
And when he, like, kind of finally gets on her, you know, because she has that moment where she, like, is very, like, torturously slowly pulling the
sheet up
her legs to do the, like, reveal of the, like, scar on her leg and stuff. But, like, when he finally gets on her, it's like, it actually reminds me weirdly of a moment in A Nightmare on Elm Street because he kind of like violently flops down and like the bed sheet like kind of goes over them, almost like it's like almost like supernatural.
Mhm.
And it reminded me of like a moment in A Nightmare on Elm Street when Nancy's trying to wake herself out of the dream and her alarm goes off and the blanket like goes up over Freddy and then it like drags them out into the real world. And I was just looking at it and I don't know why I didn't make that connection, because it's visually very similar to that, and the blurring between fantasy and reality, and what's real and what's not, and what's a dream, and is he still asleep, and blah blah blah. But yeah, I just thought that was like such a weird, uncomfortable, and again another moment where it's like unreal.
Well,
It just didn't seem real. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was a very deliberate cut there too, because when he flops down and kind of rolls over, there's kind of like a mound. He kind of like lays on his back at one moment, and there's like a mound down near his like crotch area. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, just, you know, moving on. Once again, fellatio here in the movie or whatnot.
Yeah,
but then it's revealed that it was just like his knee that was down there, and she's nowhere in the bed anymore. She's like slipped off.
Yeah.
Or that's why I was like, once again, I was like, man, is this a ghost story or something? Like, you know, did he just sleep with a ghost? You know, is that why we were supposed to feel uneasy? Or were we supposed to feel uneasy about this man like looking at this woman that way or whatever, you know?
And like, honestly, can we just say there's not enough movies about fucking ghosts?
No,
Bro,
there's
you know
not.
what I'm
Lace
talking
Crater,
about.
Lace Crater.
Lace Crater. This was Lace Crater moment right here. Lace
I thought
Crater
we
was
were going
inspired by Audition.
Ghostbusters, where Harold Ramis gets head from a ghost.
Oh, not
Lace
that.
Crater is number one on the list of fucking ghosts movies. That's
I disagree.
Also, my favorite movie that we've ever watched for this podcast.
I think in a ghost
Thank you,
story,
Azealia.
it's been a while since I've seen it. I think she might fuck a ghost in a ghost story as well.
Yeah,
so.
but does she get a ghost STD? I don't think so.
No,
Yeah.
because it's a better movie.
No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Don't believe it. It
To be
can't
fair, I
happen.
haven't seen Lace
Colton,
Crater,
I have a
so.
challenge for you. Before the next episode, you are to watch Lace Crater and report back on
Yeah,
that
bro.
claim,
Last time I did that
sir.
with fucking Repo, I was tortured. Repo and Cabaret.
Lace Crater is definitely
Hey, leave
different
Cabaret
than
out of
Repo.
this.
You got to
All
be in
right,
the
I'll-
mumblecore.
All right, I do like Mumblecore.
No,
some
dude,
of them.
do not watch this movie. Like, in all seriousness, I beg of you, do not
We
watch
do
Lace
this all the
Crater.
time. I know we're not talking about Audition, but we do this all the time. Mike says this. Mike gave Lace Crater a good rating. He liked it. I went back and listened to the episode. He liked it.
Oh shit! All right.
And he always talks that he doesn't like it. All you talked about in the episode was you're like, I didn't think I was going to like this movie, but it's pretty good.
Is it better or worse than Francis Ha? Because that's one of the Mumblecore movies I really like.
I've never seen
Okay,
that.
I never actually saw that.
Oh my god!
Oh wait,
get the
no,
fuck
I
outta
did.
here.
Oh,
come on!
No. Okay, Colton, I'll tell you a very quick story. I once, and it's funny because I keep talking about how paranoid I am about getting sick, especially like post-COVID, and how I've always been a germaphobe and very aware of like people being sick around me and just going to like movies and stuff. I went to see a movie, and I can't remember what it was, but I remember the whole time there was someone sitting in front of me hacking up a lung, and I was like, this fucking piece of shit. And literally the next day I got sick as a goddamn dog, and I put on Francis Ha, because Greta Gerwig's in that, right?
Yes. Yep. She's
Yes,
the lead.
yeah. I put that on, and I was so... I ended up within, like, a half hour having such an insane fever that, like, I actually just passed out and woke up, like, the next morning. I had this fever sleep for, like, 14 hours. So I saw, like, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes of it and was not lucid for 20 and then passed out. So it always, like, I don't think... I can't say I watched it because I was literally in this, like, insane...
fevered state. Yeah.
Whatever that person gave me that insane fever, like some kind of flu or something, but... So now Francis Ha always reminds me of getting intensely sick.
I looked up movies like Lace Crater to see if there'd be something you'd like, Colton. It says if you like Lace Crater, you would also like Antiviral, The Invitation, Daniel Isn't
Oh,
Real.
The Invitation. Oh, wow, all ones we've done.
Spring. Very much like that. It's like like I said, it's like a horror ghost romance STD movie.
Well, The Invitation's definitely my favorite out of those you just mentioned, but Spring's all right as well.
I am also a big Spring fan. Anyway, we're not even talking about Audition anymore. Are we
Does
done?
it even gotta make
I
the
prefer
cut?
autumn when I can put on a sweater.
Yeah.
Are we done talking about Audition? Are we landing the
Yes.
plane?
We're
All right,
landing
I
the
got
plane. The
no.
plane
I
is
got to
landed.
mention one thing about Audition. It's my
Okay.
second note. It says this is truly the worst fishing sound effects I've ever heard in a movie. And there we go. We can leave it at that. I don't know if you guys remember at the beginning of the movie, but
I remember the fishing
hooks
scene.
a
I just
fish.
don't.
Listen to the sound effects. It is awful.
But it's so funny that you made a weird reference to a sound, and like I said, I was listening to it with my good headset on.
Yeah.
And made multiple references in this episode to how good the sound design was.
I was actually going to bring it up.
That.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up when you were mentioning that because honestly, I never noticed bad sound work from then on out. It was just the fishing scene in particular, and obviously it was really windy and there's a lot of waves crashing and stuff. But it was like stock fish reel sound effects, really bad.
It was unreal. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was like.
But
I
again,
think
that because it was some weird dreamy thing?
I think it's just bad sound effects.
Okay, fair enough.
The next scene as well is when it relates the movie to the film industry. So I was like, wait, this movie's about the film industry as well, and it has these terrible sound effects. But yeah, that was the only really, really negative in terms of technically, right? Because the lighting is deliberate by the end of the movie. So
all right, well, let's land the plane. So we're gonna get in the rating it. If you're new to the show, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Mike, what would you rate Audition?
Okay, I'm gonna give Audition a yay. It's not quite a slay. I actually was not looking forward to rewatching this because my initial viewing was so tainted by I thought it was going to be an 80-minute torture porn movie, and it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And I had friends over and we were all just I think by the end of it, for most of the movie, we were just screaming at each other drunkenly, and then we're like, oh my god, there's torture happening, you know what I mean? And I was like, this movie did not live up to the hype. So for years I kind of had this sort of this is not as good as it is renowned to be kind of idea in my head. But when I rewatched it, I was like, okay, I really appreciate what is happening and the structure of the movie, because it's actually really unique. And again, it makes me want to read the book, because I feel I know there's all sorts of stuff that is being condensed into little moments here that we could pull at. And honestly, I'm watching it and going, I want to watch it again, because I feel there's lots of cool things in it that are going to reward further viewing. And again, the moments in it that stick out that, everybody kind of memes and stuff, like fucking Ro texted us today, the picture of her pulling the piano wire. Mm-hmm. And that is insane. I was watching it and I said to my friend that I was watching with, I was it was a particular shot when she was turned around with her back, she was bent over, and it was showing her back, and it was the buckles on her insane butcher's apron or whatever, and I was looking at it and I went, god damn, the costume design in this, that would be such a good cosplay, or a really good Halloween costume. Mm-hmm. Because it's just so beautifully done, and I just think that everything about it is actually really iconic, and there's so much going on. And again, it's you're looking at it and going, is this problematic, or is it actually progressive? And the fact that you can pull at both of those threads and have an argument about it, and I want to watch it again with that lens in mind, and go is this feminist despite what they say it is? Because I never really trust what the artist says about their art, to be quite honest. But I'm it's a reading, so I want to watch it again to do another reading, and I think that gives it a yay. I think there's it's just a really finessed filmmaking, and I've seen some of his other stuff, and one I'm going to mention that Ro didn't mention, so I don't think he saw, was As the Gods Will, which is this weird, I think it came out in 2016. It's kind of this weird, bizarre proto Squid Game,
Oh, okay.
Where it's like in a school and there's this like weird robot telling them to like stop and go, and like if you misobeyed the rules, it like exploded you into this ball of blood marbles. And it's kind of like that, and it's this weird battle royale like Squid Game thing. Like I'm looking at that and going like, the filmmaking on that was not quite at the same level. So I'm looking at this and going like, he was really at the top of his game here. So this is a yay for me. Like, what about you, Colton?
Yeah, it's my pick. I'm gonna say I'm slightly disappointed by it. I mean, most people on my Letterboxd give it like a 4 or 4.5. There's a couple of 5s there. I don't know if I'm quite as that strong about it, but I do completely agree with Mike that it deserves another viewing for me with like the proper expectations now, knowing that it's not a 2-hour torture porn movie.
Exactly.
And also, just like Mike, I kind of disregard what the filmmaker says on whether or not it's a, misogynistic movie or a feminist movie as well. It's up to the art and how I interpret it in the end. I do like knowing their intentions just for those, what I just said, their intentions of the movie, right? Were they trying to make something that's pro-misogynism? Because if so, then, I have a little bit of an issue with it.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I think all in all, it's a pretty good watch. I would give it a yay, and it's the type of thing where I could see possibly after like multiple viewings and after like watching some kind of video essays on it or some other people's takes on it, I could see it getting to like a very weak sleigh for me. But it's the type of thing where I need more watches. I need more like
for sure.
I need more discourse to kind of like push it above like it's good. I feel like it's a good movie. I would recommend it. I would certainly tell people it's not torture porn in terms of at least our traditional understanding of torture porn for sure. What about you, Rowan?
Jesus, it's been a long time since we've done this one. I think I'm gonna give it a yay too.
Oh wow,
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Colton. Like I can't give it a sleigh because I don't think I like this better than movies that I've given a sleigh.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mike said, like I think the technical aspects and the actual filmmaking are really well done. I'm a big Takashi Miike fan. Like I really think he knows what he's doing, and I think especially someone in their early teens and, just diving into horror. This is definitely an important one to watch for, like Japanese horror, any kind of like foreign horror.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it is, you gotta wait that like hour and 20 minutes or whatever. But it is worth the wait. Once that twist kind of happens, like it's a ride, and it's, I said before, I use the word, it's a fever dream. It's just,
Oh yeah.
It really gets going, and you're like, oh yeah, like this is kind of, maybe doesn't live up to the American hype, but I think for like all the critics and the letterbox people and the cinema people, like the hype is real of how well done and how good the horror is.
You know what I want to say? That this is a good, and this is not a slam against A24 or anything or the fans, because obviously everybody here, we all love them, but I'm just saying this is a good like A24 horror film training wheels movie.
It is.
Like, I think it's a good gateway into that like elevated horror, you know what I mean? It sets up the type of expectations you should be having for those type of movies.
Yeah.
Am I right? Like,
if it was 90 minutes long and like kind of after an hour and 10 minutes it went like crazy for about 20 minutes, I would like completely agree with you for sure. But yeah, I would say it's in a similar vein for sure, where it spends more time kind of poking ideas at like, hey, this is a horrific idea or a horrific concept rather than actually straight up horror, right?
Explicit,
until the end, of course.
So yeah, I mean, I think 3 yeahs, like I said, or yays, yes, 3 yeahs.
3 yeahs. 3 yas. Yas is the new rating metric, y'all. Sorry, we've thrown out yays. It's slay, yas, or boo.
Oh no.
3 yays. We never agree. I would never. I don't know if we've ever agreed like this before.
It's pretty uncommon, unless it's all slays. There's a couple of those since I joined.
I do not think it's ever happened. Also, I just have to throw out there, I'm almost finished my notebook, so I'm going to have to quit the podcast.
Oh, geez.
Oh,
Like,
God.
literally, I have like 3 pages left, so I got to the end of the year, and then I'm done. Goodbye. This is my retirement.
I only have 2 pages left, so I guess I'm leaving.
Oh, okay, so
before.
we're ending the podcast now. See y'all.
All right. Well, I have my Google Doc that I just literally
You're-
write over every
you know
single
what?
time. So
No, it's so funny. I need to do that. Like, I need to get technological, but I'm just like, I love having a notebook. I love just
so do
like, I love that I spilled wine on it, like my second episode. Like, this is like, I can smell it. I can smell my old apartment on it.
So, we told you what we think. Now it's time to find out what you think about Audition. So we got one reply to Audition on Instagram, but Nicholas _V.1.5 responded and said, highly disturbing but thrilling. I wish I could have seen it without knowing about its batshit crazy third act. So that is unfortunate.
Very good point. Yeah.
that is a good point. And I mean, that's
Because
like
that's
a lot
like
of
what
people.
everybody picks up on. Yeah.
Everyone argues over that too. Like, hey, is this a horror movie or a thriller? And yeah, I kind of wish I could have known, or I could have seen it as well without knowing that, hey, this is a torture porn movie or something,
Yeah.
right? But then I also wonder if I watched it without knowing that, would have I like sat through the previous hour and a half? You know, I don't know. I'd have to figure out what circumstances I'm watching this movie, under. I don't really watch a whole lot of romantic dramas,
Yeah. It's true, though, but, like, you think about it, it's like, it just brings up the whole issue of, like, not only marketing, but, like, consumption of film, and, like, how are we getting our knowledge, and, like, how are we coming upon it, and, like, context and stuff, and it's, like, that has such a huge impact on us. Like, even when, people who, like, want to consider themselves, like, like film buffs and stuff, like, you're still kind of like, you're always kind of under that spell, you know what I mean? Like,
you're always
getting swayed somehow.
Expectations of some degree,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
That
It's
tinges it a
impossible.
little
Like,
bit.
exactly. And you can't just be totally objective and, like, not consume any trailers or, like, not hear anything about it. You know what I mean? It's completely impossible to live in a vacuum. And I just think that's such an interesting thing to, like, take into consideration when you're watching a movie, especially something like this that is so, like, kind of like a cult classic.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, even when it came out, it's kind of hard with the marketing because, obviously Mike wanted you to kind of watch it and be like, oh, this romantic drama, and then it goes batshit crazy. But even, like, all the original posters from Japan have our lead character, like, in her kill suit, like, holding
with the
Holding
needle.
wire in the needle.
That was when I rented the movie from Blockbuster. I vividly remember the cover. It was the yellow in the background, and it was just her face holding the needle up next to her face. And I was like, that shit is needles? That is fucking scary ass shit.
Yeah, it's a horror movie.
It'll probably be the cover art for the podcast you're listening to, because it is pretty hard to find other shots from this movie, like, nearly as iconic as that. So we'll see. I don't have it made up yet. So,
but so this week, no calls on the hotline.
yeah, if you want to do that in the
call
future,
and confess your undying love.
yes, please do. So the number, once again, is 1-902-418-8620 if you want to call into the horrific hotline. You can also just send us an email, at itslaispodcast@gmail.com. I got that mixed up. But yeah, you can just send in, like, an MP3 or whatever, and we'll play it on the air as well. We're just trying to get some caller or listener questions in here. So, we talk for an hour and a half,
Also,
2
you
hours.
can text me or DM me a voice note, and I'll share it.
All right,
Follow me on
that's
Twitter.
another one. You just have to get Mike's phone number. So, but yeah, I mean, you could also follow us on all of our socials at It Slays Podcast on, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd. Basically, wherever there's a social media, you can follow us there. Slasher as well at It Slays Podcast. And Rowan, tell them about the playlist.
Yeah, so you can go to Spotify. It's called the It Slays Podcast Horrific Playlist. Also, our link tree has a link to it if you have problems finding it all of our socials. There's links to everything in our social media.
Linktree. Yeah.
And we put music on there for movies we reviewed, movies that, are revered, that have great music. It's up there. Take a listen. It's always a good time to listen to some spooky music. And then, we were going to give a shout out.
Yeah, we got a new patron. Who is it, Rowan?
So our patron is Holly. I feel like I'm not gonna,
dox her. Yeah, don't release her whole identity or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give you like last names, address, telephone number, all that stuff. But yeah, Holly donated. Unfortunately for her, we tore everything down from Patreon because we're planning on building it up. So Holly will get access to whatever the perks are going to be before anyone else.
And extra for being so wonderful.
Oh, we'll figure out for sure. Maybe we'll reach out to her and get her to pick something coming up or something like that. But yes, we're hoping to revamp the Patreon at some point, probably in the new year, maybe to launch alongside that. But it was just... Yeah, I was surprised anyone supported it right now. So yes, big shout out to Holly, especially since we haven't been plugging it.
We're just in a transition period.
Yes.
That's all.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, thanks again to Holly for supporting the show.
So all that is left is to announce the upcoming episode. And I don't know what it's like in Newfoundland, guys, but it's hot here. It's
hot here too. Yeah.
I think we said the same joke last year. So let's just reuse the joke that when it's hot, it's time to send the kids to camp. And we're doing sleepaway camp, my pick. I know Mike is excited for this. And
oh my god, for so many reasons, I can't wait. I'm literally, those couple pages I got left in my notebook, bitch, they're gonna be gone. I said I'm retiring at the end of the year, but it's gonna be next week.
I think it's gonna make for a good discussion for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a polarizing film, and we're gonna have a special guest. We're gonna have Willow on the podcast, and you can look her up. She's commented on our stuff, and we follow her on everything.
Icon, friend of the show, friend of us.
Professional movie reviewer. We're gonna torture a professional movie reviewer by just coming on a podcast with some amateurs giving bad takes.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Listen, we tortured her enough, forcing her to be at parties with us back in the day, so this is nothing. This is child's play. At least you're not handing out tequila shots all night. Okay?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's funny because I've never actually met Willow in person, but I know her from, I think, a couple of mutual friends, but also just through her writing online, as a critic, doing takeovers of the Netflix Twitter account to do discourse on The Matrix, or her Patreon where you can see her exclusive reviews and whatnot. So
brilliant. Yeah. Subscribe, follow.
Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to discussing Sleepaway Camp. I don't think she's the biggest fan of it from what I understand, so we'll definitely have a good discussion for sure.
So that is everything for this episode. We will be back in 2 weeks. No, sooner than that. When I don't know. I don't even know if we have a Now Slaying coming. I don't know.
I don't know what's coming out
Jesus.
first. I don't know if Sleepaway Camp will be out before Nope or not, but we'll be back for Nope on Now Slaying. There's just nothing coming out that's kind of worth reviewing right now. So I feel like it's been ages since we've recorded, but it's only been a couple of weeks. So
we'll figure it out. We'll get it sorted out. But yeah, thank you for all the support, and we will be back. I am Rowan.
It's Mike. Bye.
And I'm Colton.
See you later.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store. Back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Mom with the new fletch.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.